Hello and welcome back to TJ Stats, a baseball podcast hosted by yours truly, Tim. Today's player we're going to focus on is more of a recent player who has recently retired, Hunter Pence. So, those that don't know, Hunter Pence was a right fielder, played for a handful of teams. We'll get to all of that. So, let's dive right in and just look, as we always do, just kind of start from what we're looking at the top of his baseball reference page. So, four-time All-Star, two-time World Series champ. I believe that was both with the San Francisco Giants. But again, we'll get to that when we scroll down for a bit. So let's start with some of the bio and then kind of the history of how he got into the major leagues and the rest of the stuff that I'm seeing here. But first, before we dive into that, the reason I picked Hunter Pence for today's episode was because I've been seeing him play for the Savannah Bananas, the independent team out of Savannah, Georgia. If you're not familiar, definitely worth some social media research to see what they do. But he was a recent guest player, or however they do that, guest banana, if you will. So I saw him on there and I said, that's interesting. I've got some history with Hunter Pence. I meant to have it pulled up, but there's a picture of me getting his autograph. I'm like 13, 14, something like that. This was in 2011, 3 days before he got traded to the Phillies as part of the trade deadline. And again, the 2011 season when the Phillies went on to have the best record in the league. I actually found the card I have that's autographed, so hopefully you guys can see that. So I've got him kind of a unique pose there. He's sliding with his tongue sticking out, sliding for a ball there. But if you can, as you can see, or hopefully you can see the giant P in Pence. So he's got that as part of his signature. So that's always been one of my favorite signatures or autographs rather. So I figured I'd bring that on since we were doing an episode on him today. So getting out of some of the nostalgia, let's get into some of the numbers here. So I was born April 13th, 1983, about 40 years old now, in Fort Worth, Texas, so pretty close to where I'm at. I'm actually in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex as well. His baseball career, in terms of professionally, started when he was drafted by the Milwaukee Brewers in the 40th round of the 2002 MLB Junior Amateur Draft from Texarkana College in Texarkana, Texas. For those that don't know, that's the Texas and Arkansas border. And then I guess chose not to go that direction and stick with school. And then the Houston Astros drafted in the second round 2 years later from the University of Texas at Arlington in Arlington, Texas, which is where the Texas Rangers play. Went to Arlington High School. We already talked about the colleges because he was drafted from both of those. Made his debut a few years later at the age of 24. It looks like to possibly opening day of 2007. Went 1-for-3 with a hit against the team that originally drafted him, which I did not know that. That's pretty cool. And then he played his final game at age 37, almost 37 and a half, August 21st of 2020, so during the COVID season, versus Arizona, where he went 0-for-2 with obviously no hits, RBIs, and it looks like no stolen bases. Okay, so as we keep going, he exceeded his rookie status in 2007. And it looks like his agents were Beverly Hills Sports Council, previously Billy Martin Jr. His full name is Hunter Andrew Pence. And the nicknames, I'm going to click on these. I haven't heard these before. Captain Underpants or Wawinja. Wawinja. Let's see. Okay, I thought this was going to take me somewhere that helps explain all those. So we're just going to have to wonder why he got those nicknames. Maybe we don't want to know. There's some social media stuff. We don't need to see all that. But his career numbers, he was a 30, almost 31 wins above replacement player. A little over 6,400 at-bats, just short of 1,800 hits, almost 250 home runs, 279 career hitter, almost 900 runs, almost 950 RBIs, 120 stolen bases. That would have been more than I would have guessed. And then we see the on-base slugging, which rounds up to almost an 800 career OPS, which puts it at a career 114 OPS plus. Bunch of stats there. Long story short, was an above-average hitter. So that's what we know from that. And maybe not necessarily an above average Gold Glove winner, since we're not seeing any Gold Gloves up here. And right field's kind of a crowded spot, so we're not taking anything from his hitting, but maybe there's some sluggers. Why he didn't want any silver sluggers, but and real quick before we move on, looks like he was number 9 for 4 or 5 years for the Astros, and then number 3 for the Phillies, and then for 8 years was number 8. There you go, for the Giants, and then for the Texas Rangers, which is where he went to school in Arlington. I forgot he played the 2019 season with the Rangers, so you got that going for you. And I guess he went back to the Giants to wrap up his career. So anyway, moving on. Let's get perfect. We're able to fit that pretty much all on one screen. So just looking straight up, what I'm seeing jump off the bat are these bolded numbers, which looks like in 2013 and 2014 played every single game, which is awesome. And then led the league in 650 at-bats in that 2014 season. Doing that at the age 31, that's impressive. And then before we dive into some of the individual stats, look at the awards on the side. Was a finalist for the Rookie of the Year. I did not know that. And then was an All-Star for the first time in 2009 and 2011, so twice as an Astro. Looks like his second highest MVP finish was in 2011 as well. And then 2012, back-to-back years. Okay, this looks kind of crowded for 2 years, but another, somewhat worthy MVP chance at it, I guess. 32nd, it's not a whole lot to talk about, but then was then 16th at MVP in 2013, and then it looks like maybe one of his best years, if not his best year, was when he was 11th at MVP and an All-Star in 2014 as a member of the Giants. And then it looks like he actually got, that's right, he was like a DH guy and just had kind of a resurgent year. I kind of remember this now. In 2019 was an All-Star for the Rangers, and then we don't really need to talk about his Giants career. The second stint in it anyway, showing what some of those numbers are. So, as we can see, primarily played right field, kind of mixed it around for a bit towards the end there, but mostly corner outfield guy. So, let's see. Let's look at some of the numbers here. So, 25 home runs 3 years in a row. So, he had 20-plus home runs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So, that's solid. And then RBIs, it looks like he got at least 100 once in 2012, and then just fell short in 2013. Okay. Let's see what else we got. Stolen bases, looks like the most he had was 22 in 2013. And then strikeouts, pretty typical numbers. Looks like a little high in 2012. Let's look at some batting averages. So we've got 282 back-to-back years. Now that's always interesting when you see stuff like that happen. 2011, 314. Okay. Keep going here. Yeah, that Phillies tenure really did well for the stretch run of 2011. And then really struggled as a Giant in 2012 in the regular season. So that's interesting, but didn't matter. They still won a World Series that year, so that's rather interesting. Let's see, and then 283. There we go. And then almost 290 in 2016, and then 297 in 83 games as a Texas Ranger. That's awesome. Love that. And if we look at on base percentage, looks like his best year was 2011 with a 370. Man, yep, almost had a on base percentage of 400 as a Philly down the stretch. That's exactly what you wanted at a trade deadline acquisition. And we'll get to some of the trades he was part in, so which players went in which direction, all that good stuff. Slugged, wow, his best quote-unquote full season, so not when he was just partially with a team. I don't even know if that's fair to say. It was 552 as a member of the Rangers at age 36. So that's interesting. And then OPS plus, looks like 2011, 139. Real solid there, his best year. Total bases, 304. Did that twice, which is another interesting stat. Let's see. That, I think, is going to get us through here. Then we look at some more of his career numbers here. Played over 1,700 games, over 7,000 plate appearances. We talked about it. So his 162 game average. So basically, if you take his career, we talked about the average and some of those numbers. Oh, that's cool and all. Would have been 11 stolen bases, 89 RBIs, 23 home runs, 5 triples. That's it. Ooh, we forgot to point that out. 2014 had 10 triples. Okay, well, you've got the triples alley in San Francisco's ballpark, so that definitely helped with that. And it looks like he had 9 as an Astro in his rookie season, so that's where some of that speed's going. And if anybody that ever watched Hunter Pence was not a guy you would, get your kid and say, okay, do things like he would do. He kind of hunched over swing, had some kind of a bunch of movement, kind of ran, had kind of a weird running stance. He used one batting glove, I think. Had kind of a slingshot kind of throwing motion, even though it was accurate. So he's just one of those guys. I mean, you can tell this guy's sticking his tongue out in this autograph of mine. Or this autograph card of his that I've got. So I mean, it just kind of shows they're kind of a quirky dude, but I mean, clearly the numbers were there, stats were good. I mean, it's a great ball player, not a Hall of Fame caliber player, but I mean, kind of maybe the next tier or two down, where it's like really solid, multi-time All-Star. So not quite MVP level, but and we'll kind of look at that as we get towards the wins above replacement category and all that good stuff. So as we keep moving down, let's see. And this is some of the in-depth of batting stuff. We don't really care to see that. But we get to see his career earnings was over 130 million. So that's definitely better than most. So that's pretty solid. Let's see. Advanced batting here. And we don't want to really see this either. About a 19 career 19% strikeout career strikeout rate, excuse me. Hard to get that out. Okay, let's look at the postseason numbers for a bit. Okay, so a lot of playoff experience, right? Lots of W's as we're seeing here. So we're seeing in the Phillies, his first playoff appearance at 28 was against the Cardinals. That's actually a very historic playoff series, especially in my experience as a St. Louis Cardinal fan in 2011. You got to go to the National League Division Series, goes 5 games, as you're seeing with his numbers there. He batted .211, so he kind of struggled there. No home runs, no extra base hits of any kind. So really struggled there, but that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. But that's one where Chris Carpenter and Roy Halladay squared off 1-0 Game 5. And he was actually, I think, the second to last. Actually, I think you had Chase Utley, Hunter Pence, and then Ryan Howard to end it. So he had a chance to tie it up at the last inning there. So anyway, getting off my St. Louis Cardinal high horse. Looks like the next year for the Giants, let's see, beat the Reds in the Division Series, beat the Cardinals in that was not a fun series for me to watch, but I do remember that one. And then sweeping the Tigers in 4 games, where he batted .286 in that World Series. So he was a huge contributor in them sealing the deal in 2012. And then 2014, again with the Giants, the wild card round, beat the Pirates in 1 game. Beat the Nationals in the Division Series, beat the Cardinals in 5 games, so that wasn't even a competitive one for the Cardinals, and then beat the Kansas City Royals in the 2014 season. But don't feel bad for the Royals. They got it the next year, 2015, and it looks like he freaking knocked the cover off the ball in that World Series, batting 444 on base half the time. OPS plus almost 1,200, 18 total bases. Wow. So definitely did some good stuff there. I believe Madison Bumgarner won the MVP, but Pence was right there, had a chance to get it as well. And then it looks like his final playoff appearance was again with the San Francisco Giants, part of the even year stuff that they did. Wild card round, they beat the Mets in 1, and then lost to the Cubs in the Division Series as the beginning of the Cubs, as we know, breaking the curse and winning the World Series, winning it all in 2016, breaking their 100-plus year drought of winning a World Series. So overall, in 10 playoff series, so 250 hitter, didn't slug all that great. A couple stolen bases, couple home runs. So, I mean, solid performance. Not everybody plays off the charts. I mean, those are obviously the fun stories. But it wasn't always him. But clearly he had the 2 World Series that he won with the Giants. He was, a good part of their success there. So, let's see. Fielding, we can ignore that. Let's see. Yeah, and just looking at it, looks like he played. Oh, looks like he actually played a lot of games in center field his rookie year, and it looks like they went, let's stick you in right field. So, and then played the majority there, and then played a bunch of left field for the Giants towards the end of his first stint with them, and then only played left field his second stint for the Rangers. Oh, just kidding. I lied. 5 and 5. So he split it evenly in the corners there. So that shows the game distribution in terms of positions he played in his 14-year career. Okay, so let's look at some of the leaderboards, awards, and honors that he was part of. So played in the 2006 Futures game. Did not know that. We talked about the 4 All-Star Game appearances. Couple monthly awards, some weekly awards. Looks like in 2011, he had the 6th highest WAR with 5.7, which is, if I remember, that's about MVP level in terms of 5.7 wins above replacement, but I think they show that lower. 2 seasons in the top 10 offensive WAR. Plate appearances did a lot. We showed that. Games played showed that. 2011, 314 was in the top 4 in batting average. And then we'll just throw out a few that he was top 10 in a couple, at least 2 times. Runs scored, hits, total bases, doubles, stolen bases. So, I mean, had a good career. He's like, upper part of the leaderboard in a lot of different offensive statistics. So that's obviously part of why he was so good. Let's see. Yeah, this is more defense stuff. We don't really care. It looks like in 2020 in the National League, when he was playing for the Giants, he was the oldest. He was the 5th oldest player at that point. So that's I guess he was about 37, 38. So that's interesting. Let's see. I'm not sure what these Hall of Fame statistics mean, but I think they're basically saying he wasn't quite good enough to be a Hall of Famer, which we kind of already established that. Similar players. Now, this is interesting. Vernon Wells, Aubrey Huff, Matt Kemp. Okay. Adam Jones. It looks like Tony Avila is the only Hall of Famer that they had as a comparable. So that's interesting. Okay, let's look at transactions. This, to me, is a fun part. Let's see where we're at on time. Yeah, we're still doing all right. Okay, so 2002, drafted by the Brewers, did not sign. We already kind of put that together. And then 2 years later by the Astros, he signed a week later. So it was probably pretty close to the deadline if I were to imagine. And then 2011, the Astros traded with money to the Phillies for a player to be named later, Jared Cozart, John Singleton. John Singleton's actually making a resurgence back because he never really put it all together back in this time period. Josh Zeed. The Phillies sent... So, okay, those were all players that went with Pence to... Let's see. Am I reading this right? Traded by the Astros for a player to be named later. Yeah, okay. So they sent a bunch of other players to the Phillies. None of those really panned out. Pence obviously did well, helping them get make a run in 2011. And then the Phillies sent Domingo Santana. He's a guy who he's kind of had some flashes here and there to the Astros. So the Astros didn't really get anything out of that, but it was kind of a semi-expiring contract, I believe, as well. Actually, no, it wasn't an expiring contract. What am I talking here? Get ahead of myself. So, really, Hunter Pence went over there. None of the other players really in the deal were that significant, as we're seeing here. And then it looks like the following year, the Phillies traded at the deadline to the Giants and got Nate Shearholtz, I remember that name. Tommy Joseph and Seth Rosen. So no any kind of like studs, like MVP, All Star type guys that they got back in return. So it's another one where the Giants probably did well there, especially considering he helped them win the World Series later that year and in 14. So we'll take that. And then was a free agent after the 2018 season. So he was with the Giants for a long time, and then signed as a free agent in early February of 19 with the Rangers, and then was a free agent after that year. And then exactly a year later, he signed with the Rangers. He signed to go back to the Giants, and then was released later that year by the Giants. So part of a couple deadline trades. No significant players attached to any of that, so not really juicy details there. See his contract there. So that's all that's there for him there. And that pretty much brings us to the tail end of Hunter Pence and his career. Like I said, now you're seeing him with like Savannah Bananas. I think he's done. I don't know if he's done any TV coverage and stuff like that, but really a solid player. It was always a fun player to watch. Again, very quirky, but that's just kind of how it goes. But again, thanks for joining for this episode of TJ Stats. Again, Hunter Pence, his career. Now you know a little bit more about that, hopefully. Again, thanks for joining and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks.